coming back here to shift this into the beginning of the film. In your email you had asked also, in addition to the stuff about the kitchen, you asked about this hallway, whether you guys were deciding whether to put that at this clearance here at 39 or 42, 43, like this. And so I thought a few photos might help. I don't know. This is what we ended up with for the construction drawings, and then after they pointed out we needed some insulation on the basement wall. We lost an inch up here, right here. It's a pretty minor point. So that's where we were with the construction drawings and what's shown, and here's the dimensions. This is the back wall is 6'2". I have this place so that you could still put a rod through here. And the alternative to 3'6", 42 inches, one alternative is to just shift that in 3 inches or so, and we end up with this. And you can see how these values change at the back wall. So there's just a couple inches lost there, and nothing else really. And then the way they look from the photographs, this is the one with the 42-inch clearance, as the construction drawings show, and this is just bringing that forward to 3 inches. So that wall becomes longer. The clearance becomes more narrow, but the wall becomes longer and this wall becomes shorter. And from this angle, you can see. I personally, in addition to the fact that this 3'6" is closer to this 3'8", so you get a similar flow through here. I just think that this wall looks better, longer, rather than shorter. If I had to make my final call, though, it'd just be based on the clearance and the fact that it's only costing a couple inches in the back of that closet. So that's that part of it, and we'll continue on to the rest of it now. Definitely I would stick with the 3'6" through there. Okay, you had asked in your email for a little more clarification on how this space would feel with this wall of storage. So kind of went overboard developing this in a number of different ways for you to get a sense of it. I don't know if these photos are going to be enough to do that, but certainly they're better than nothing. First we'll run through going back and forth from these two views, and then I'll run through them just from this view and then just from this view, because it's kind of hard to see the switching or the changes as we go forward. So this was the first one. This is what was shown on the construction drawings, where it's all 12-inch deep storage units. Each one of these is 30 inches. And notice these have a higher toe kick because I'm just using standard 90-inch cabinets, allowing room for the crown, and then just boosting that to get rid of the rest, and then this gets some sort of base to hide that lift. So this was the first one from this angle and from this angle. And with that 12-inch, these have a good 5-foot clearance from the edge of this to that. Like this, where it's 5'1" from the edge of these 1-foot deep pantry cabinets or storage cabinets, whatever you want to call them, which is a lot of space. And here we're at 3'8". And now while I'm here, I'll cover a few other things. The top is now 4'1" from the top of its curve to the front end. And even if you put a panel back here, you've still got at least 15 inches of leg space or knee space. So if you want to reduce that a little bit, that would also be a possibility. Pull these seats this way a little bit. But while I was here, I just came over to make this particular screenshot, and I've discovered something that's going to complicate matters and create some more decisions for you to make, but it's probably a good thing. I almost think it's the way to go. And I'm pretty sure that your builder would have discovered this and brought it to your attention and probably gone that way as well. But now that I'm here, I'll cover the ground and you can get with him and talk to him about that. But if you recall, we knew that we couldn't push this refrigerator back because I'm almost positive that this chimney comes all the way out to the surface, the backside of the plaster. And once I had reached that conclusion, we increased the depth of all of this cabinetry here, the tops to 15, the bottoms to 27 or 28, to try to disguise some of that projection. And granted, we were picking up additional storage space in the cabinets and additional depth on these tops. But something that might be worth consideration, and this just arose because there continues to be a discussion about this doorway and traffic jams here when someone's at the fridge. And this is what it is. We can flip this, watch the refrigerator and this whole bank here. And so you can see what happens here, this 3'8", because we flipped the refrigerator, it's 3'0". That gets the refrigerator away from this end here, or not 3'0", 3'3", leaving these that at their depth and leaving that refrigerator on the surface of the wall. This clears up the traffic confusion here, and I'm just showing that door shrinking down to 3'0", because that should be more than enough for this little room here, even with this path back here. This is a 30-inch door, so, and that picked up an additional 6 inches on this wall cabinet and this bank here. It's a little less short over there. But more importantly, and to the point of this little exercise, is the fact that since this is not a chimney back here and we know it's hollow, certainly it's possible to get rid of these extra depth cabinets, get rid of that increase in depth on those cabinets and the top, and get rid of this little bump wall here that we've done to go along with that, and just push the refrigerator back in an opening here. And so then we're back to the 3'8" from the counter. Come back here twice. We had 3'8" before. Flip the refrigerator over, push it back in the opening, and we're back to 3'8". So that's that, and unfortunately that's probably going to color some of the photos, a lot of these photos of my review of this piece here, but that's, nothing can be done about that now, but certainly I think this bears consideration. And here are some photo shots. I didn't overdo this as per usual. One thing, you will need that end panel. It has to be thick enough to accommodate switches. Before, when it was the other way around, the person could reach around and the switches could have been on the backsplash of this cabinet to the right of the range. Now that's not possible. We want to keep this door as wide as possible. So I think the way to do this is to have this end panel built 3 inches or whatever it takes in order to accommodate switches on that end. Like that. You can see the little switch box there. I kind of like this. I almost prefer this, but it will be luckily your decision. And from this end, like this, and then the finished photos, for what they are worth, are that and that. But to return to our regularly where we began here, this is just something for you to take under advisement or whatever and discuss with the builder and yourselves. And so we return to this, and now this, again, this is the old way here, but the distance between the front of this and this has not changed, except that now this is the big refrigerator right here. So, I'm not going to paste those in here for you to see, because it's going to be similar. But this was the 12-inch deep cabinets, and from both angles like that. And then we come back around, and maybe that center one gets pulled out to 15 inches deep. These are remaining 12. It's a little tall seaming here, so I've widened it out and made these 24s here. I'm showing the handles on the outside edge because you would probably be accessing it from here, but that's probably going to hurt someone's eyes, so I think you just have to go with them on the inside. But going forward for some different alternatives here, so much of this is colored now by that kitchen being flipped, but I can't do anything about that. I mean, I could, but we don't want to get involved in all that. So this, now I get rid of all of this because you do have an awful lot of storage here, and go to a little buffet. This isn't really valid. I think this is coming out, so that's really just garbage. And at least that gets pushed back where it's flush with these here. You need to leave a little margin for this top to return to here, so it changes the cabinetry a little bit. And whether that has glass in it or not. Since that flipping back and forth I think is too confusing, we're going to look at everything from this point in the kitchen, and then we'll turn around and look at them from that way. So this is the wall of storage, 3 30-inch cabinets. I thought that was a little much, and I brought this one forward. It still seems very tall to me, so I widened it out, changed these to 24. I had these handles on the outside to access it from this, but probably just go with something more conventional in that event where the handles are on the inside. Still, it's a lot of storage, and perhaps this might be better used as a staging area for stuff to bring in there. Not that you don't have plenty of tops, etc. But these are just for your consideration. Now this one with this cabinet is only 3 inches back from that. And whether we bring those out another, now those are 15 inches deep, just like these ones were in that permutation. And maybe you leave the refrigerator down there, I don't know. But now they're 15 deep, just like these upper wall cabinets. And maybe that bottom, I think that bottom piece should probably come forward some. And that's, I think 18 deep on those flanking cabinets is about as much as I would consider, at least at the time when it was open over here. Now that the refrigerator, if the refrigerator ends up here, 18 deep is not that big a deal at all. Now these are 24s, whether this one's has some hooks in there for everyday jackets going to the car, whatever you use these for. And obviously, well, here was one more. That bottom piece could actually come forward. It's missing a backsplash here, but you get the picture. Like this. I'll take a break here in a minute and talk about a few other issues that have to be discussed, including these columns. These next several photos just show an alternative with 2 columns instead of the one asymmetrically placed one. I'm showing 2 columns here, just as a way to, if it was something you wanted, kind of isolate this space a little, create some division. I prefer either the 2 columns or no columns, as opposed to the one kind of wandering column that's off-centered in there. But I do know there's beam work involved with getting rid of the one. There may not be beam work involved with just adding one in the additional space. And eventually, I assume I had been showing these with horizontal buttons. I assume eventually these windows get replaced and go with something more conventional. So this final permutation here is with these are 18-inch deep cabinets. This one's 21, probably pulled forward another inch or so, just to create enough so that that's back far enough people aren't banging their heads on it. This cabinet's also set a little lower than these. That's just up to you. It's more of a buffet type cabinet height. It's probably 33, 32 inches high. And this final bit is just what I meant when I said it kind of get carried away. With these having that 15-inch projection, I was wondering if maybe those should have some sort of bracketing, depending on it's hard to see them, particularly at this cabinet here, but you can pick them up, the shape here. And these were just several different permutations. I kind of prefer these lower profile ones here, like that. You can see them. Maybe a little taller, I don't know. Those ones are just straight angular. You can just pick that up here. But that's it from this view. Now I'll show you from the view down in here. Hopefully, as I said, this hasn't been all too terribly confusing, and we won't take a whole lot of time with this. Here we were at the start with all 12-inch deep, 30-inch wide, 3 30-inch wide, 12-inch deep units, and we pushed the front one out to 15, or the middle one, we pushed the middle one out to 15 deep. Then we make these side ones 24 wide, move the handles to the inside conventionally. That has to at least go back to there, and it's probably even better served if these other ones come forward like this. Whether that very bottom one comes forward. At some point I discovered the error in my drawings with the step out here, and I tried to correct that to something closer to what you have. And so now these are 15 deep, just like these. So if you stay with this plan here, these are 15 deep. This is 12 inches deep, and I think that bottom one should come forward at least 3 or 4 inches just to keep a person's head away from this one here. No backsplash, but and then this final one just brings these flanking cabinets to 18 deep, like that, and finally pushes that bottom piece forward. I notice I'm missing a range hood in some of these, this one anyway. I will go back and I will look at the few other things that I want to talk about, the columns and this cabinet that's over here by the seating area. I should be able to wrap this up here pretty quickly. Now, I made this because when I began to think about increasing the depth of these cabinets, when you look at this whole plan, this rectangle through here, you could see really that's where the extra space exists, and these almost look kind of not right being that shallow, but I just wanted you to see that was one of the facts, is that all of these cabinets kind of follow this line here except for these ones. So I think you have plenty of room to increase that depth if you wanted to. That's the 12 inches deep, and bring them to 15 deep. This is still 410, and even bringing them to 18 deep is still 4'7", which is really a substantial path through here. Even coming back around to where the refrigerator's at this end with 18 deep, the same. And if you did with the refrigerator here, it's probably safe enough to increase those even to 21 deep, something like this, and still have 4'4". So that's just a quick outtake for that. And so now we can talk about these columns. As you know, this is what the drawings look like. You can remove this if you make sure or install these heavier members through here. Some alternatives though, that's what your clearance is now. I don't like this one with just moving the column. I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it looks good just having that one in the middle. So I think really the only two alternatives is leaving it like it is, like that, or going with 3 like this, in which case this is just added. This all just stays as it is, and this one's just added. It's not even really doing anything except being there. But maybe that closes this all down too much. As I said, I prefer it completely open, but I don't really like that one single column. So, and they may have to do some work with this beam anyway, depending upon how that old beam is interfaced with that. So they could have some work there anyway. But that was a little something I wanted to cover, those columns there. I don't know if I show photos from out here. Yeah. And so I'm showing that's your one. This was 2. This was just shifting that one to the center of that opening. Again, I don't care for that. And this was adding the 2. I prefer it with just 0, but everything costs money. And from this end, there's the 1. In the center, I don't think so. And there's the 2. So that was that, and then this is the final bit, and it's with regard to this cabinet here, and this seat being, now that we used to have, 1, 2, and 3, 4, but getting rid of that seating here, which I thought was a good idea. Now this person's back here a little bit, and so I don't think this cabinet should be too close to them. and maybe that cabinet just goes away completely. Recall I'm showing that as a glass door cabinet. Maybe that just goes away completely and you have this symmetrical cabinet here, and this is just art here. But in any case, I think it should probably be pulled back at least to 18 inches wide instead of the original. Originally I showed that at 30 inches wide. I think that would be terribly wrong. These people are going to be right, it's going to be right in their face. So that's got to go back. That's kind of an error that wasn't picked up at the time that I changed that seating. And so 18, and I would almost get rid of it or make it 15. So that was just a little something there. And I think that's the end of this whole situation. This is the original one where I was showing them going back and forth with these wider ones. These are the 15-inch deep flanking with a flush buffet like that. You see I have no column in these. And you know, at the end, if you don't need all that storage, even though I think this wall needs something, I don't think it could just be, you know, with a piece of art on it. You probably, for the money that it's going to take to buy this, all this stuff and put it together, you probably buy a very nice piece of antique, big antique or something like that. Anyway, you wanted to know kind of how that would feel, and I hope I hope this has done that for you. You can see there's just so much open space here, and if you did do something like this and this becomes part of your coat hats type storage, then the traffic's even reduced back behind these chairs some more. But again, a lot of this I'm really tempted to, I think what I'll do is I'm going to open up that plan again with the refrigerator here and paste this into it and give you that one final shot, and that will be the end of my horsing around with this. So we return to that plan with the refrigerator down here and paste in that same assemblage of cabinets, and then you end up with this. But famous last words, I believe I probably got carried away again, but we'll run through these. "18 deep, 21 or 22. From the end of the kitchen coming in from the den, and this is where things get a little bit carried away because I began to work with this bracketing here, even though now that we've reduced that the depth of these to 12, and they're not even out here hanging out at the end, these brackets are not necessary, but this work has been done. There you can see a pretty good view of the brackets. They're only about 7 inches high, and this little bit here, this is a light rail, so you can have your recessed or your LED lighting up behind that, lighting that counter space. You can pick it up down here. In this shot, you see I'm showing that cabinet only 15 or 18 wide, that glass door cabinet. But things get a little bit more involved, and there it is, that 15 wide cabinet, and working with these brackets. And I guess there was an issue of where do I end that tile backsplash if we went with something like this, whether it's like that. And then I think these go back, I don't know, but I think when I pulled that cabinet out, that was how it was when we had the third. This is how it was when this cabinet was still 30 inches wide, and you can see it's kind of in this person's face way too much, so definitely something like this. Or in working with this bracketing, you probably get away with something like this. Now it's lifted up where it's 24 inches off of this. It's nowhere near in their view anymore, and it gives them that feeling of openness. You can see I've added glass doors, I think, I've added glass doors to some of these, left the bracketing. And this was all just to solve this bracketing issue because I was kind of attached to them at the moment. Whether that still comes back another 5 or 6 inches, still it's 30 inches here, 27 or 30. Whether that comes back to about 24 like this one, you would have to decide. Even you would have to decide whether you want this up and down look in the first place. This is kind of boring to me, kind of stock. It has a little more of a custom feel, which costs money. And then as is typical, I revisit a few things when it came to this angle with regard to that doorway. As I said, I prefer it with no columns at all, but if you did get rid of the column, that one lone column here, then I almost wonder if that shouldn't be a cased opening like the rest of the house. It doesn't really reflect it, but there's a lot of millwork and so forth going on with this fireplace, so this almost seems a little bit austere or blank. So, but that's again something that will be up to you, your builder. Here's the same thing with that cabinet going a little less wide to 24 or so. And there will still be a discussion about this backsplash. Finally, if you want to get rid of that column all the way and didn't want to have the 3 and didn't want to get involved in the beam work required with this, you could just pull this margin of that doorway out. The doorway goes from down to about 8'9". I have a floor plan shot somewhere. Kind of isolates this corner here a little bit, and I don't think it's a bad thing at all. It would require probably pulling that step back, that margin of the step that's over there. You would have to pull that back as well, but they are going to be putting new floor down anyway, so that's probably less involved than getting involved with replacing whatever member they have up through here. From this angle, the same discussion ensues. And this actually is coming back. These cabinets actually now are shown as 21 deep. Well, maybe those are 18. Yeah. This view here is showing these cabinets at 21 deep. This view here is showing these cabinets at 18 deep. And we go forward. And we go forward and bring those out to the 21 deep, adding casing to that doorway. And last, well, not quite last, adding the one column and just pulling the margin of that out to eliminate the need for all columns and all framing work up in here. Finally, returning back around to this original shot from the family room, there are a few things that have happened. This was really just a look at this backsplash situation here, tile backsplash situation. I think probably just that. And then it changes view a little bit so you can get a feel for the entire kitchen. This is from the family room. There's glass here. I've added some glass. I added a little bit of glass here because presumably that venting is going back up into the part of the chase that's still available behind it. One last move is bringing these out to the 21 deep like this, and the floor plans of that. And then this door frame is all the way against the edge of this panel here, and whether the person wanted to shift this even a little bit wider and make that door frame from panel to panel on either side. And this cabinet goes from 39 to 42 wide. It's something to be decided. Here's a couple floor plans of this. We have it at the 18 deep, and this is 39 wide. You can see the door frame here and the clearances, etc. And whether we widen this out to 42, make that door frame edge to edge, would have to be decided. Quick little look at these columns. If you add the one, that's about what you would have. If you go with none, and if you bring that margin in. And I believe, yes, that is the end of it. So, good luck with all this. Feel free to email, etc. Thanks.